These two guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
It's a scoop session on this Tuesday with Doogie. Darren Doogie Wolfson from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department was doing his TV thing late into the night while we were doing Ventline on YouTube over here. So it's the first time we've all gotten a chance to commiserate together after the Viking season came to an embarrassing end last night. So million different directions we could go here, Doogie, but I'll throw the juicy one at you right away. After these last two games, how risky is it for the Vikings to franchise tag Darnold with the hopes of trading him? I think like the ship has sailed on franchise and pay him to start one more year. Like that's gone. Is there any way that you could franchise him and still get a draft pick from another team, or is it just flat out too risky that he would sign the franchise tag tender?
It's a fascinating question, Phil. It's the big question. Yes, I mean, foregone conclusion. Heck, I could have told you this weeks ago that Sam Darnold would be one and done. But the question is, okay, are there enough quarterback-needy teams, even after the debacle of the last two games? Let's keep in mind, it was just, 16 days ago. The Vikings destroy the Packers. I'm there at US Bank Stadium. I'm in the locker room postgame. Guys are laying out how they picked up Sam Darnold, Harrison Phillips, others. Doused him in water. Massive celebration. What the heck changed over the course of 16 days? But even right after that, if we had spoken on December 30th or December 31st, I would have told you Sam Darnold was not coming back to the Vikings in 2025. But yeah, the question is, okay, like New Orleans, Las Vegas, Cleveland, I'm leaving out 3 or 4 franchises. To me, there are more quarterback-needy teams than competent quarterbacks available. I still think the franchise tag is on the table, but it's not as clear-cut as it was, say, December 30th or December 31st. But I still think there are enough teams that you franchise tag him and getting a draft pick. Put it this way. I'm not saying it's off the table. I need to do a deeper dive on it, Judd. Like, I don't know in this moment. I don't know the answer either way. I'm not sure they know the answer. So it's hard for me to know the answer, what exactly they will do. But I'm just saying, as emotional as it is on this Tuesday, January 14th, I'm not ready to declare no way, no how they won't use the franchise tag on him.
All right, so recklessly speculate for me on two things. One,
I'll give you cover here.
Thank you very much.
Reckless speculation.
I appreciate the cover. For Doogie, too. One, how much did these past 8 quarters of football cost Sam? And two is, if they do franchise him, in your opinion, what is the potential draft pick return now compared to like before? It was, hey, you might get a second-round pick. Who knows? It could be a first-round pick. So how much did Darnold cost himself with the past 2 games? And what do you think he cost the Vikings as far as that opportunity to trade him and get a high pick? What's the compensation now?
All right, I'm thinking it's still a day 2 pick. I guess I need in front of me the Saints and the Raiders and the Titans and the Browns. Maybe the Titans go quarterback. But all the quarterback-needy teams, the obvious quarterback-needy teams, what is their draft day capital in terms of day 2 Friday? Or perhaps does one of those teams have a high 4th-round pick that could make logical sense? I still think it's a day 2 pick, but I'm not as convinced it's a 2nd-round pick as maybe I would have been a couple weeks ago. For the contract, I still think he's in that Baker Mayfield vicinity, the Geno Smith neighborhood, north of Geno Smith. Something in the neighborhood of 3 years, $100 million still makes all sorts of sense to me. I'm just telling you, you need to convince me that there are enough quarterbacks to fill all these open positions.
Yeah, there's not.
That his body of work through week 17 was plenty good enough. Now, hey, I get it. I'm not convinced we will see this Sam Darnold again. That this very well may have been his career year. When you have these receivers, the infrastructure in place, that is not going to exist in many places, but it can still be good enough. Pittsburgh is another. What does Pittsburgh do at the quarterback position? So to me, there are still so many quarterback needy teams that he is going to get paid. It's just not going to be, and I don't think it was ever going to be, by the Vikings.
The deadline for franchise tagging players is March 5th. So you do have, 6-ish weeks or so, like I guess 7 weeks to have back channel conversations. I don't think
combine, all that stuff. Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
So the combine will happen, and then I think the combine
Senior Bowl,
is right
that,
before then.
Yes.
So there's plenty of time to, over an old fashioned, just an agent and a front office guy catching up on life and football and reminiscing and maybe talking about free agents under the table. But I don't think, and then by the way, so March 5th is the franchise tag deadline, and then the league year starts like a week later. So then you'd want to know then what kind of cap space do you have? Is 40 million of it tied up in a player? So you're going to have, this is how it should work, right? Back channel conversations for the next 6 to 7 weeks to find out, okay, Steelers, you got nothing. You got George Pickens, needs someone to throw the ball to. That offense is a disaster. You're not high enough to select one of the top 2 quarterbacks in the draft. You're kind of stuck right now, unless you want to run it back with Russell Wilson. If we tag him, it helps you because we will negotiate exclusively with you. You don't have to be in a bidding war with like 4. And I know bidding war sounds crazy to people after what we've seen the last 2 weeks, but there will be a market for his services if he's a free agent. He's the best available free agent quarterback, and he's young. So like someone's going to pay him something. But can you find out if the Steelers, for instance, are willing to give you like a 3rd round pick in the next 6 weeks so that when you franchise him, you're not doing it and then holding the bag and being like, oh, no, there's no market for Sam Darnold, and now you're stuck. So the next 6 weeks are going to be critical in that regard behind the scenes.
Emphasis on the back channel conversations. By the way, I'm with you, Darnold. To me, clear cut. Like, if you want to make a case for one of the Steelers, fine, but to me, clear cut, the best free agent quarterback available. This is just me, my opinion. I would rather sign Daniel Jones for 1 year, $10 million versus giving Sam Darnold 3 years, $100 million.
Well, that's what the Vikings are about to do.
Franchise.
Yeah.
Sure. But all it takes is one franchise. Sam is going to get paid. Yes, we can debate. Maybe not quite as much after the last 2 games, but he is still going to get paid. It's those back channel conversations. Sam has incredible representation at Creative Arts Agency. Trust me. The Vikings will know on March 4th or March 5th, right up until that deadline, if they slap the franchise tag on him, they will know, trust me, they will know in that moment there is a trade to be completed. They are not going to put the franchise tag on him, then say, oh, okay, now let's begin these discussions. Oh, okay, do we think we can find a trade partner? No, trust me. By March 5th, the Vikings are going to have a very clear picture what his trade market, if there is a trade market, what that will look like. So while I don't know the answer right now, I don't think the Vikings know the answer, so I certainly don't know the answer. Trust me, by March 5th, there will be full clarity. If the Vikings do indeed use the franchise tag, expect a trade soon thereafter.
Did we see Harrison Smith play his final game as a Viking last evening?
You know what? I mean, just for as emotional as he was in the locker room, he was gracious with his time. I know my colleague Joe Schmidt got him one-on-one for a few minutes. He chose his words carefully, but just the emotion on his face, I wouldn't be shocked. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if after 13 years he is done. Now being a family man, but I know he loves playing for Flo. Is Flo for sure back? He'll interview this week with the Jets. I still will be surprised if there's an owner that is willing to hand the keys to Brian Flores while the litigation is still pending, him suing the league. But if Flo somehow gets one of these jobs and he's not back, not that Harrison doesn't have some other people that he loves dearly at TCO, but if Flo is not back, like let's say he gets the Jets job, yeah, in that moment I'll tell you, yes, I think Harrison Smith is retiring. I still think, though, I still need a little bit more time to decipher that situation. I get it. Incredibly emotional in the locker room. Of course he was going to be emotional in that moment. The word is post-game. We saw it with Josh Metellus, crying on camera. Love me some Josh Metellus. Love that guy so much. Yep. But a lot of guys after, the 15 to 20 minutes of cooling off before the media was let in, like in that cooling off period, I was told there were a ton of tears in the Vikings locker room. So I get it, talking to Harrison Smith 30 minutes after the game ended. I get it, where he was going to be pretty darn emotional, maybe not quite like Josh Metellus, but you could see just everything just impacting him, the look on his face. But I need to know if Flo is back. So I can't sit here. Like, I think last night on social media, it was instant because of the emotion. When he was chatting with Ben Lieber, others. Okay, that's it. Like, people were declaring instantly, Harrison Smith is done. He is retiring. He won't be back for a 14th season. I'm just telling you, I'm not there yet. I'm not so sure he's there. I had a nice chat with him the other day in the locker room about cherishing these opportunities. I said, hey, perhaps you even play 2 more years. Maybe it's not just 1 more year, 2 more years. His face lit up. I don't know. I got the vibe from speaking with him in the locker room on Friday that he hasn't wrapped his brain completely around walking away at this point.
Yeah, it's so tough because he's so beloved by fans. He's been on now. You think about the teases during the KOC era where if you're in that locker room and you're buying in and you're winning 13 games a couple years ago and hosting a playoff game, and then you're fighting for the number 1 seed in week 18 this year. And so you can, on the outside looking in, you can see the gap between the Vikings and the actual best teams in the NFL. But if you're immersed in it, it feels like you're really close to winning a Super Bowl. And man, if you're Harrison Smith, what if they add 4 or 5 key pieces to this thing like they did last offseason, and JJ McCarthy is the dude and you retired, and it'd be a really tough decision. But your body after a decade and a half in the NFL. Switching gears for a second here. So, Cam Robinson had probably his worst game of the year last night, according to Pro Football Focus. 12 pressures allowed. The Vikings' offensive line was terrible, and Sam Darnold was not helping them by hanging onto the ball too long. It was just a stew of incompetence on offense. What did you make of Kevin O'Connell pretty forwardly throwing the interior offensive line under the bus? The Cam Robinson thing, it's not even worth criticizing because, like, Christian Darrisaw's coming back, and he's one of the best in the NFL. It is what it is with Cam. But specifically, Blake Brandel, who was not as good in the second half of the season as he was the first half, under contract for, like, you're going to keep him for $3 million or whatever. Like, he'll be on the team. Dalton Reisner, free agent. Bradbury, you could actually save $3.5 million by cutting him at age 29. But what did you make of him going public KOC with the criticism of the interior offensive line as some parting words for the end of the season?
I appreciate his honesty. We get so much KOC word salad that in that moment, that sentence, I was like, okay, whoa, did he really say that? Like, I had to go back and listen. I'm like, okay, he actually admitted that. Like, we all see it, but I wasn't so sure, especially in that moment, that he would go on the record with those thoughts. Now, hey, we all understand. I mean, we've been saying it for years. Fix the interior of the offensive line. So this isn't a new phenomenon. But, like, I do give Dalton Reisner a good amount of credit. Never played right guard. For the most part, okay. Maybe the last 2 weeks, not so much. But for the most part, made the transition pretty darn good. I thought Garrett Bradbury bounced back in many ways this year compared to last year. Blake Brandel, really a tackle by trade. So maybe he's your swing guy. Okay, so I get it. You need to fix the left guard position. Maybe Blake goes back to being a swing guy. Your main backup, tackle, and guard. You don't bring back Quessenberry. Rouse, okay, main backup at left tackle, but Brando could be your main backup at right tackle, but also have that guard flexibility. But yes, I mean, whether it's Trey Smith or any number of other capable free agents, or at pick 24, like, I'm not opposed if the right interior offensive lineman, I know it's not sexy, but if the right interior offensive lineman is sitting there at pick 24, pull the trigger then. But yeah, clear as day. Like, we now know that. We thought it, but now we know it, that they need multiple interior offensive linemen. I just need to know, though, who is the center? Like, I could make a case. I could live with Bradbury back next year. Okay, new left guard, new right guard. There is a world where I could operate with Bradbury back at center.
I can't do it. I will tease.
Which is fine. Fair. plenty fine. I get it. I understand it.
There is a 26-year-old free agent center on the market that maybe we do this for our bonus episode because we're going to do another Purple Daily today. We're just going to dive into off-season content today, damn it. Let's just turn the page and go. But there's a couple dudes out there that can help you fix your interior offensive line.
So Doogs on
Trey Smith number one, right? But yeah, I mean, I'll be curious to hear the other names you have.
Back to the guard, because I believe that what KO said at the podium last night was sort of also a shot across the bow, not necessarily to the interior line guys, but to Kwesi and his bosses, and here's why. I think there was a season-long frustration. Let's just say this. I don't think it was KO's decision to start Ed Ingram for as long as Ed started, and I think it was, my guess is partially the embarrassment. Like Ed is one of the few, or was one of the few pieces of that 22 draft left who was, in air quotes, contributing. And I think KO wanted to pull the plug quicker than the Vikings did. I think part of that was he probably was influenced. He finally said, screw it, Dalton's going to your point, not just start at right guard, but a position he had never played in the pros before. But I think those quotes were probably as much for his bosses as they were for the guys that played, because he made it very clear, hey, they tried hard. It was almost like, don't blame the kids. The kids are trying. It's the adults. Which is why I do think that there is a decent chance that we, for the first time in a long time, are going to get a real emphasis and some spending done on an area where I think the Vikings, for a long time, going back to Spielman, have thought that they could sort of get away with being cheap. I think O'Connell's finally at a breaking point with where everybody knows now you're going to have to spend on 1, 2, or 3, but certainly at least one position when it comes to the guards and center.
Oh, absolutely. I will be shocked if we're sitting here on 2 months from now, March 14th. So like I'm talking early free agency. Maybe it's more like March 21st. But March 14th makes sense. 2 exact months from today. Right after the start of free agency, if we are not talking about the Vikings having made a move on an interior offensive lineman. Because realistically speaking, even though I'm suggesting pick 24 if the right interior offensive lineman is there, they're probably not going interior offensive lineman at pick 24. That's more like interior defensive lineman or maybe cornerback, although I still think you can find cornerbacks later in the draft. Like, to me, I would take an interior defensive lineman at 24 before I would take a cornerback. But if they love a certain cornerback, fine. So yes, they are going to invest in the interior of the offensive line. I firmly believe that. They have so much spending power, they have to do it. I don't know the exact name. To me, Trey Smith is the name that should be atop any list. But guess what? He's going to be atop the list of many teams. But if it's not Trey Smith, whoever it is, yes, I fully expect them to invest heavily in at least one interior offensive lineman.
Yeah. We'll get to more thoughts from Doogie here and the rest of his scoop bag. But you know what makes me feel better after a terrible Viking season-ending loss? Emotional eating. Beer, but like legit pizza. I'm going to have to go to the grocery store and pick up a couple here maybe later today. But yeah, we're talking stone-baked cracker thin crust, zesty tomato sauce, whole milk mozzarella, exceptional ingredients, a signature spice topping. Legit pizzas are legit. They live up to their name. They are the real deal. You cut them in squares, Minnesota style, and some of the best pizzas you're going to find at a grocery store near you to have an authentic at-home pizza parlor experience. Also, MSP Plumbing helping to power these scoops today, gentlemen.
Absolutely true. And here's the thing. They are all about what? Commitment to your home, commitment to the fact that it's, at this time of year, incredibly important that what works. Your heat works, your plumbing works, all of those things. And guess what? They're going to come out to your house and they're going to get the job done. Keep your home safe and sound. There's nothing worse this time of year than when the furnace does this. And you're like, oh no, not the furnace, not now. It's too cold. That's why check out their website right now. Call msp.com. Call msp.com. Get them out to your house. Make sure that everything is running perfectly. Even if there's not a problem, it's never a bad time to make a call.
God, that guy continues to look like Declan. Like, the more I see the video, the MSP video, holy crap, Declan, that guy is you.
As someone who can't fix anything, I'm calling someone to fix my stuff. So I promise it's not me. I promise it's not me fixing the HVAC or furnace. Not me. Not this
You and me
guy.
both.
I love it.
Dukes, before we get to rapid fire scoops here, what else is on your mind going into Vikings offseason here in the coming weeks? Things that are top of your mind that we haven't touched on.
KOC is still going to sign a massive contract extension. Any suggestion in the emotional time of late last night thinking he should be fired is completely ridiculous. Now, I get it. In his 3 biggest moments, Giants playoff game, Lions playoff-esque game, Rams playoff game. Okay, I understand. Favored in 2 of those 3. I think the Lions at kickoff were favored in week 18, but favored last night, favored January of 23 at home, first round playoffs against an inexperienced, in terms of playoffs, inexperienced Giants team. The Giants win that game. The Rams win last night as underdogs. It doesn't matter. Kevin O'Connell is going to get paid. He just is. He is going to be the Vikings coach for a long time. Andrew Miller, others with the Vikings, the Wilfs, still think the world of Kevin O'Connell. He is not going anywhere. Ryan Grigson is hopeful to be in the mix for the Titans GM job. He has not been contacted yet. They've interviewed something like 10 candidates. I mean, you talk about casting a wide net. Holy crap, they're in Nashville. But his name has not come up in Nashville, but he'll get his chance with the Jets. In fact, I saw an ESPN reporter for the Jets, Connor Hughes. Maybe I have his outlet wrong, but one of the Jets beat guys suggesting the other day, okay, Ryan Grigson, Jets general manager, Brian Flores head coach, Josh McCown, OC/play caller.
Sam Darnold.
I don't know if I would bet on all that, but interesting that somebody who's in the belly of the Jets beast suggested that he could see that being the end game.
Interesting.
Dukes, I'm switching gears here quick before we wrap up. I saw that there was the report from Sportico that the Ishbia is actually on a very small stake in the Chicago White Sox, which would actually prevent them, obviously, from purchasing the Twins. Now, could they buy themselves out of that stock? Probably. But have you heard anything about that? And also, if the White Sox, and I think Reisdorf said they are up for sale, is there a backup plan? Are they trying to use the Twins as leverage and then go buy the White Sox? What's up with the Ishbia's?
I'll tell you what, I mean,
owning
yeah,
them?
it's a good question. Good report by Sportico. Really good report by Sportico. Tell you what, Justin Ishbia being there in Chicago, it would make logical sense to try and buy the White Sox. I do wonder deep down, is Jerry Reinsdorf truly ready to sell? Is he? If he is, Justin Ishbia purchasing the White Sox makes all sorts of sense. But you talk to Twins officials, they don't have any reason to believe that this is a leverage ploy. The interest, from everything I can gather, Ishbia in buying the Twins is legit. I still need to see it, to truly believe it. Now, this high-ranking Twins official last week didn't necessarily deny that athletic report, but also said, hey, like he's the one who suggested to me, I still need to see it to believe it. I'm like, yeah, I agree. I was about to just say that. So I still need to see it to believe it, especially at the price point that the poll ads have been seeking. If we're talking more like 1.3 or 1.4 billion, okay, different discussion. But at least at 1.6 to 1.8 billion, I'm not sure that thing gets done by opening day. At a lesser number, okay. Now let's talk. All right, maybe. But at 1.7, for example, 1.75, hard for me to see that.
The Sportico piece did make it sound like the Ishbia's purchase of a very small stake in the White Sox was not like a Reinsdorf thing. It sounds like his kids sold a small portion. So like when you got into that story, it doesn't sound like it would be very hard for the Ishbias to divest themselves. So like I don't think
it wouldn't be hard at all.
I saw that at first and thought, oh, potential hang up. And then I read the story and I'm like, no. It's not. So
no, it's not a hang up.
I think it's a non-starter as far as being a problem.
Is interesting. Not like I have deep knowledge of the White Sox inner workings at the ownership level, but the kids being involved like that.
It's like the poll ads.
Can they convince Dad? Can they convince Jerry? Okay, look at your age. Like it's time to sell,
yeah,
right? So, I wonder about that. But I'm just telling you, multiple Twins officials, they don't have any reason to believe that that Ishbia is like, okay, let me put it out there. Let me show that I'm interested in the Twins because it's the White Sox. I haven't heard any sort of ploy like that.
Sure.
No. This would have been accounted for months and months ago in their plan. They're not like getting to the finish line on a Twin sale like, oh, crap. We forgot. We own White Sox. We own shares of the White Sox. This is all. A lot of the reporting is coming out.
It
months
came out
after
now, but sure, yeah, no,
it's
this
in a shoebox.
This isn't new to
Remember?
those in the mix. Yeah.
Remember, we own part of the Whites. Oh no!
Man, it's crazy.
Oh, what can we do with this?
Do you remember the login? How do we access our account? Oh no. Dukes, give us some rapid fire scoops here in the last minute or two to close out.
Speaking of the Twins, they're expected to have representation at a January 23rd showcase for my guy, reliever Nick Anderson. The hope is he can sign a major league deal. Now, based on his year last year, I'm thinking it's more like a minor league deal, invite to big league spring training. But hey, the blowback on that is Josh Stallman, Jay Jackson, any number of relievers this time last year signing 1 year, $900,000 type major league deals. With Nick Anderson's track record, if his fastball carries on January 23rd, whether it's the Angels or someone else, certainly the Twins have some level of interest. They did last year when he was free. They are going to at least explore that. I do know the Angels, though, definitely have firm interest. Otherwise, we sit back and wait. The Twins did reach, when I was with you guys last Thursday, we said in that morning that, hey, look for the Twins to reach all sorts of agreements later today. Well, snap of the fingers, by 3 o'clock Central or 2 o'clock Central, they had 1 year agreements with all their arbitration-eligible players, the Joe Ryans, the Bailey Obers, go up and down the list of guys that they reached agreements with late last week. I was told there really wasn't any traction on any longer-term deals. Those talks could pick up later. I expect them to at some point, but in the moment of last week, it doesn't sound like there was any movement on any sort of long-term, even dialogue that got off the ground, even just, a bit. I don't get the sense that ever happened with any of those guys.
I also heard similar things that they could be revisiting some of those conversations in spring training for those extension eligible.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of agents head down to Fort Myers,
Yeah.
inevitably check in on their clients, make the rounds down in Florida, also down in Arizona. But when in Florida, you may as well connect with Derek Falvey, Jeremy Zoll, and others. One more. Shooter had a note in his Sunday column in the Pioneer Press about Ryan Saunders, some boosters, speaking up the name Ryan for the Gophers job. I mean, I have a feeling I know who Shooter spoke with. I mean, we're talking just a few people. I wouldn't put a whole lot of stock into that report. Like, Ryan had some interest before Ben Johnson got the job. But in that moment, Ryan didn't even have a whole lot of background on Minnesota high school basketball, the right AAU people to know. Not that Ryan hasn't caught up, now knows some of those people. But Ryan is so focused right now on becoming an NBA coach again, which I think is going to eventually happen. And he's loving working with Michael Malone, with the Denver Nuggets. I just don't know, too. If you're Mark Coyle, okay, you make the move on Ben Johnson. If you can wrangle up the $3 million or so it'll take to buy him out, a little less than $3 million, but we're talking millions of dollars. We're not talking, like a $300,000 buyout. But if you can wrangle up the money to buy out Ben Johnson, another Big Ten loss last night, although they were pretty darn competitive at Maryland, I think you need to go a different route. I just don't know how you go with somebody who has never coached in the college game.
Yeah, that's fair. Darren Doogie Wolfson from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department.
You're wild getting some guys back, Judd? We have a photo guy over at practice right now. Apparently Kaprizov and Faber are on the ice.
Yeah, Kaprizov perhaps tomorrow night. Brock is a concussion, I'm sure, so that's just going to depend on him passing the protocol. But
he's been cleared to skate,
Kaprizov
so that's
coming back will help.
Yeah,
Good.
Absolutely. Good.
All right,
boys.
Dukes. Great work.
Take it easy.
We'll talk to you on Thursday, sir.
Sounds good. Reckless
There he
Speculation Thursday. Can't wait. See you, boys.
Yep. Plenty of reckless speculation ahead here in Vikingsville. This is Minnesota Sports with Mackey and Judd. See you guys.